Should you sell your home right now or wait? The housing market is shifting. Interest rates are trending lower, buyer demand is picking up, and days on the market are dropping. So naturally, it feels like a good time to sell your home. But does that mean you should sell your home right now, or should you wait and potentially put it on the market in spring of 2026? The most common question I probably get from sellers at any time of the year is asking me the question of, is now a good time to sell my house? And naturally, I have somewhat of a canned response depending on the timing of the year. Because real estate is cyclical, and because it has seasonality and kind of moves in patterns, my response changes depending on whether it's the spring or the summer or even the fall. And at the moment, at the time we're filming this video, we're moving into that fall winter market. In fact, we're after Labor Day now. So we are in that fall winter market, which is typically a time of the year when things slow down, inventory starts to come off the market as we get closer and closer to the holidays. Buyer demand continues to pull back in a meaningful way. And with all those sellers who decided to keep their homes on the market, the days on the market naturally grow, which generally leads me to tell most sellers, if you're thinking of putting your home on the market this time of the year, you've got to be very, very careful. And that's because there's a high likelihood that that property could sit on the market longer than we expect. It could actually sell for less than we expect. And that's generally because there's just less willing buyers in the market this time of year. In fact, my normal recommendation is if you're going to put your home on the market between October and November, you're better off waiting until the following year, because that's likely when you're going to see the most buyer activity, which is ultimately going to lead you to a higher selling price. But here's the thing, this year is a little bit different, and that's what I want to talk about in today's video. We started the year with interest rates somewhere around 7%, and at the time I'm filming this video, interest rates are in the low 6% range. So we've seen interest rates grind about a full percent lower over the first 9 months of this year, which has naturally improved affordability, which has caused buyer demand to jump to the highest level that we've seen in 3 years. And because we've seen so many buyers come back to the market, we've actually seen the days on market for properties that have been sitting on the market actually come down. And that's because in a lot of markets out there, inventory has increased. Buyers are feeling more confident because interest rates are down, affordability has improved. They can stretch that dollar just a little bit further. Therefore, the current market is a little bit more active than usual for fall. So with that, I want to talk about why selling your house right now could make sense. And then we'll talk about why you should potentially wait until 2026 to list your home. But before we do that, I'd like to take a minute and ask a favor. If you find any value in my videos at all, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. So now let's talk about why selling now could actually be a smart move. As we head into that fall winter market, we're going to see less inventory on the market. Even though you and I right now are having this conversation about putting your home on the market, naturally, most sellers are going to pull their homes from the market because they don't want people walking through the holidays. They don't want to have to deal with buyer appointments. They don't want to have to deal with the craziness of having family over and friends over for gathering and still having to keep their home show ready. Therefore, a lot of sellers will take their homes off the market and decide to relist it as we move into the spring selling season. So with that, you're going to have less inventory on the market, which ultimately means less competition. Now with that, before I made any decisions, I would start looking at the inventory comparable to my home in my market. Pick your neighborhood, see what other homes are like your home that are currently active for sale. Are there a ton of listings? If there are, then you might consider waiting until there's less inventory on the market. If there are absolutely no homes on the market in your neighborhood and you have a home you feel like stands out, it shows well, and you believe you're going to price it well according to market value, then that's a good way to get ahead of the market because there's less competition, right? If there's 10 buyers looking in that particular neighborhood and you're the only house available in that neighborhood, well, guess what? All 10 of those buyers are likely going to want to view your home versus waiting until the spring selling season when buyer demand picks up, inventory picks up, but now they're competing over 2 to 3 to 5 times as many homes as they currently would in today's market. Now with that, I feel that buyers that are willing to buy in the fall winter market, when again, holidays are happening, gatherings are happening, these buyers are willing to go out and look at property on the weekends, go to private showings, whatever it is to view homes. Those to me are serious buyers, which means they're not out there just looking, they're ready to make an offer on a property. So if your property is the only one available and you've got serious buyers out there competing for that property, then the current market could be one to stand out. Now at the same time, interest rates are volatile. That's one of the reasons that buyer demand has picked up, because interest rates have come down in a meaningful way. And while I fully expect interest rates to continue to grind lower, that doesn't mean that they can't go up a little bit before they come back down, which could end up impacting some of that buyer demand. So by listing your home now, you're taking advantage of what you currently see in the market versus waiting to list your house in a market that you don't really know where inventory is going to be. You don't really know where buyer demand is going to be. And I think that's something really, really important to note, is you're taking advantage of what you know is accurate in today's market versus guessing where the market is going to be. Now, something else I want to point out is that buyers tend to be a little bit more flexible when there's not a lot of inventory to choose from. Imagine being a buyer that's been looking at the market for the last 4 to 5 months, not being able to find the home that they want, or maybe in the neighborhood or the school district that they want. And now one pops up, but maybe you as a seller have to find a replacement property, or maybe you're building another home and you need to wait for it to be done. I feel like the fall winter market, buyers are more willing to work with sellers because they don't have as many options out there. They can't just jump ship, leave you, and go to the house down the street, because there's a good chance that the house down the street isn't becoming available until next year. So with that, I feel like buyers are just more flexible in the fall than they are before that spring rush. Now, if you are somebody that is considering selling your home in the fall versus waiting until the spring, I still think you need to have your ducks in a row. You need to know where you're going when you sell your home. Are you renting? Are you buying something else? That's something else that you're either renting or buying. Is it out there in the market? Have you seen it? Or are you going to be contingent on selling your house? You need to do that homework up front. That means getting pre-approved now versus putting your home on the market and then figuring it out, assuming you're going to get a loan, right? Don't wait until your home's under contract to try to figure out the plan, because whether it's the fall or the spring, that could end up backfiring. At the same time, you want to make sure you're doing the right things to your home so that you can get top dollar for it. Just because you're the only home on the market doesn't necessarily mean you can overprice it, doesn't mean you can leave it cluttered or not stage it, or have a bunch of repairs to be done. You still need to come to the market like you would in the spring selling season. But at the same time, if you're somebody that's moving for life reasons, maybe job, retirement, divorce, maybe there was some sort of death, or if you're just trying to get ahead of that spring saturation, right now could be the ideal time to get top dollar for your home. So now that we talked about why fall could be a smart time to put your home on the market, so now let's talk about why waiting until 2026 could be smarter. The first thing is something we talked about earlier. If your home isn't fully prepped, by waiting, you're giving yourself time to do the necessary repairs on your home so that you can get top dollar. Now, if you're watching this going, well, what repairs do I need to do? How do I know what those repairs are? What I would recommend is talking to a professional real estate agent in your market. Have them come out, take a look at your property, and give you recommendations on things that you can do in order to help maximize the value of that home. Now, if you don't know where to start, you would like to speak with a real estate agent that does business like I do, I've created a vetted list of agents just like me all over the country. All you have to do is check that link in the description of the video. Another reason it could make sense to wait is that you're trying to maximize exposure. My belief is that exposure drives demand and demand drives price. So the more exposure you get on, say, your house, the more demand it's going to bring. The more demand you have, the higher the price you're going to get. As we head into the fall winter market, demand is subsiding, right? You don't have as many buyers out there in the market just naturally because of all the things we've discussed. But as we move into that spring market, that demand typically comes back, which means you naturally have more buyers out there in the market looking to purchase homes. Now, the downside to that is there's also more competition out there in the market on the selling side, right? There's going to be more inventory for buyers to choose from. So if your house doesn't stand out in, say, your neighborhood, if there's other properties that are much better and they're priced more competitively, that could end up hurting you. So that's a conversation to have with that professional that I spoke about earlier. When they come out to take a look at your property, ask them the same question that we're talking about in this video. Should you sell now or should you wait? And what is their reasoning behind selling now versus waiting? You don't want a pushy salesman that just trying to get your home on the market when it doesn't make sense to sell it. But at the same time, you don't want an agent dragging their feet telling you that you should do it in 2026 when you could actually maximize the price right now. It's all about balance. You really need to find that agent that's willing to give you the critical advice but also guide you in the right direction, whether it's pushing you to do something now or telling you to wait so that you have enough time in order to get your property in order. Now, with that, there's a lot of people out there that believe that interest rates could be even lower in the spring. If interest rates are lower than where they are today in a meaningful way, That means you're going to have a lot more buyer demand coming to the market, which is a positive sign for you as a seller. But it also means you're likely to have a lot more sellers coming to the market as well, because it's going to unlock inventory. So going back to something I say all the time, don't try to time the market. Do it when it's the right time in your life. If you're looking at the current market now and you think you can get your price based on the conversation you're having with your agent, then there's no reason to push it off until 2026. But at the same time, if you're someone looking at the current market and you're not seeing property out there that you would buy if you ended up selling your house, or you're not seeing something that you could move into, then that's another reason that you should probably wait, because the spring is likely to bring more inventory, likely to bring you more options. So at the end of the day, it's all about whether or not you're ready. Are you selling because you have to, or are you selling because you want to? If you're somebody selling because you have to, then there's no sense in pushing it off any further into the future, because there's no guarantees as to what the 2026 market's going to look like. At the same time, do you have flexibility, or do you have to act now? Are you just delaying this because you don't want to have to deal with it? Or does 2026 actually work better for your plan? At the same time, what's happening in your current market right now? Is it slow? Is it fast? Are things moving quickly? Are things sitting on the market? Is there a ton of inventory? What does buyer demand look like? These are the conversations you need to be having with your real estate agent before ever putting your home on the market. I think the key takeaway here is this isn't about timing the market. It's about aligning the market with your current goals. There's no perfect time to sell, but there is a right time for you. Right now could be a great opportunity, assuming you're ready. But at the same time, if you're not in a rush and want to position yourself for the spring, that's okay too. Either way, make sure you're talking to a local professional in your market. If you need one, check that link in the description of the video.